Hello and welcome to the Vanguard of Light. I'm Factor Future and we are talking about goal momentum. Unlock the universe's magic. What's this going to be? Alright, so what we're going to be talking about goals, but in a different way. So, you've probably heard the study if you've been in personal development. A lot of people like to quote it about like Cornell or Stanford, where 3% of the people wrote down their goals, then they tracked them, and 20 years later, they were the most successful. They had the, and it wasn't just financially, but also physically and mental well-being, and just how critical it is that you must write down your goals. If you wait to the end of the video, I got a twist on that story. Inside info. Okay, so I've got a question for everybody. Who here has a physical body? Anybody? Anybody? Physical body? How many corporeal beings do we have out here? Also, how many of you want to keep that physical body all the way up to the end of your life? Any more yeses? Do we get some more yeses? Yes, yes, yes? Okay, so what I want you to do is we're going to write down our top physical goal. Since we all have a body, let's write down the top physical goal. So it should be up there. So what is your top physical goal? I want you to spend like 10 seconds on this. You either have a top physical goal or you're just going to make one up right now. Once again, this isn't a goal setting workshop. This is to start with the magic. So you're going to enter your top physical goal, right? And you might be wondering, what are we doing here? I don't want to do a goal setting. Or maybe you're like, yeah, goal setting, top physical goal. Haven't thought about it in a while. That's good. I'll have that intention. What we're doing is, do you remember Karate Kid? If you saw the movie, it was about the main character. He's getting beat up, right? So he wanted to learn martial arts. And Mr. Miyagi was his teacher, right? And Daniel-san, the student, was like, oh, train me, right? Because Mr. Miyagi protected him one time. He was like, wow, you know karate. I'm getting beat up. Help me out, please. So he's like, okay, I'll train you, right? In the beginning, he had him he had to wash his car. He had to wash his car. And then he had to wash it like this. And then he also had to wax it. Wax on, wax off. And it could have been this way, it could have been that way. It's not really important, but he had to do that. And that's the only, he couldn't just wash it, right? He's like, you gotta be very specific. So Daniel-san's like, okay. And he's like, gotta paint the fence. And he's all like, no, like this, like this. So I had him doing all this paint the fence all day long, right? So it's the first day he's washing the cars, the second day he's painting the fence. Then he had to sand the deck, right? You had to sand the deck this way, sand it that way, or it could have been, I think it was this way, right? And by the third day, Daniel-san's all in pain, and he's like, what's the deal here? I wanted to learn karate, and you're having me do these, silly chores. And eventually he's like, okay, get ready, and he's starts throwing punches, and then all those movements that he's doing became muscle memory. He's blocking stuff, right? So all of a sudden he's like, wow, I actually was getting trained. That's what's happening here. So we are going to jump into the next plate. Actually, you're going to go in, download the one pager. It should be in the description. It's free. It should bring up a page like this. It's like goal momentum. And we're going to start writing down what's your top physical goal. You have it already in mind, kind of got you prepped for that. And then we're going to write down your top relationship goal. And like I said, take 10 seconds. You either know it or take 10 seconds, and it can be very simple. It doesn't have to be list everything that you have and no. Just even get an idea. If it needs to be as simple as girl, boy, just write that down. Don't worry, it's going to get tuned up. This isn't the old way of doing goal setting. So next we're going to do a financial goal. So you either have a top financial goal or take the next 10 seconds, write down a top financial goal. Hopefully you have that. And so what we're doing with this is that there is a pathway to realizing your genius. You come in with it, right? But there's still a pathway to walk. So let's take a look. Anybody recognize who this person is? Hopefully you do. If you don't, that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is an amazing man and was an amazing leader, an amazing speaker. But get this, when he was born, he didn't speak so good. Actually couldn't even form words. kind of like all of us. When we were born, we weren't speaking. We were talking. You know, good old Martin didn't come in saying, "Yo, mom and dad, check this out. I've got a dream and I'm going to do this and this." No, he came in not able to speak, but then he had that inside though, that dream inside, which then got realized by him taking steps and actions to get there. So there's a path for all of us to realize the greatness that's inside. So back to that story about the study. So we wrote down our goals, right? And that study actually turns out to be fake. It's kind of an urban legend. A lot of people quote that, oh, well, they said that it makes sense. It sounds good. It's not that writing down goals is bad, but it turns out to be a fake study. Because I had a friend, I had built a software, it's called Accountability Buddy, right? And it would basically keep you accountable and send you emails and you could track it and stuff like that. But in that process, I met this person that was kind of like this goal science person that we did a partnership, and he was really kind of into like the science behind all goal setting, and so he wanted to find out that study. He heard that study, he's like, oh my gosh, I totally want to find out about that study. Calls up Cornell and it's like, can I get a copy of that study about the 20 years and this and that? And they're like, yeah, we never did that. Maybe Stanford. So he calls up Stanford. He's like, oh, I'd love to get that study that you guys did. And they're like, yeah, we never did that study. Where's this coming from? And he's like, well, I think he first heard it from Tony Robbins. So he calls up Tony Robbins' staff and they're like, yeah, can I get that study? And like, oh, we're not really sure. Maybe he talked to Zig Ziglar. So everybody was like kind of pointing to everybody else, and he called all the, Ivy League colleges, and none of them had done that. Study didn't exist. That was like, it's urban legend, right? And part of that, I mean, it is good to write down your goals, but it's not like the universe isn't a vending machine. It's not like if you could just put your money in right and type in the right code, then it's just going to spit out your goals. I mean, the universe or God, source, is like the big dog. We the little dog. And we're a part of a much bigger plan. So it's not like we got the big giant plan. It's just like, can we get the universe to kick out my selection on the vending machine? It's like, no. We've got a purpose that came in. And God's looking at like, well, how can I get you guys to willingly, follow that purpose? Because it's going to be amazing for the planet, amazing for us, for our soul and the growth. And like, there's this hope. So it's kind of like the reverse of like, God's got the clue. We're looking for it. So back to our one pager, what you see here is this part called realizations, right? And this is what, like after 4 hours, so we make a request. Actually, we didn't make a request. Let's jump in and make a request first. So the first thing, we're going to potentiate our goals. So we've got our goals. So first we're going to go into our physical goal. And we'll say our physical goal and say like, universe, God, source, I would like this goal. And breathe into our heart chakra. Just feel it like, yes, that's something I would want, right? And notice, how did that feel? Was there resistance? I'm like, maybe I don't want it. I'm not sure about that, right? Because you could be getting some early talking to of like, hey, maybe you want to rethink that. And maybe that's coming from limitation, but maybe it's coming from source. So next one, we're going to go to relationship. We're going to potentiate that. So just say your relationship goal. You can do it this, you can do whatever hand movement you want. That's not critical. Like I said, it's not a vending machine, right? It's not just getting that little tweak to make it happen. So say the relationship goal, source, universe, God, I would like to have this. You put the tension out, breathing the heart chakra. Just notice you start getting some feedback. I mean, you might get resistance, limitation, but you might also get tweaks, goals, and like, hey, here's your next step, right? Now, financial goal, God, universe, source. This is the financial goal I'd like to have. You'll listen for the feedback, And one way to kind of tell, like if you get it, like, hey, we need to pivot, make sure the pivot is greater than. Like source is not going to replace yours with something smaller. It's going to replace something greater where you're like, okay, I want to be this. And you get like that little sense saying like, what if you did it this way? And you're like, ooh, yeah, I like that. But if the voice is like, why don't you make it smaller? Then it's coming from a limitation. You're like, okay, well, we'll just put that aside for now. And this, like I'm saying, this is new, but this is basic. So we haven't gotten to, this isn't the good stuff yet. This is just part one. This is the very beginning, but now it's a difference to where we're making intentions and requests. So what is this? We don't need that there. We're making requests, but we're also getting feedback. We're starting to play. Because this is my intention is not so much to be, here's your goals, here's how you get them. That's one part to make it exciting for you, and it's a cool feedback because it's actually something you care about. But it's also to build that communication with Source, because once that communication is built and the better that gets, now your true reason for being here can start coming out, can start manifesting. And that's when it's a super game changer. Not to mention, when you start getting that communication back and forth and you know it's Source and you feel guided, that feels amazing. That is awesome. So, this crystal, where does this come in? What's this about? Okay, so, like I said, this is kind of like a level one. We're just doing some communication, kind of warming it up. So imagine you had a crystal, right? And you had a crystal that had metaphysical properties that kind of in alignment with the goal you chose, right? And so it's kind of like this crystal aligns with that goal, right? And then you were able to clean the crystal. You were then able to consecrate the crystal, which massively increases its power. And then you were able to program the crystal to your goal, to hold that intention in that goal. So imagine if you could do those three things and you carried that crystal around with you. How much that's going to start boosting that communication, boosting that clarity, because now you got some support helping you too, like keeping it unconsciously. Plus, it's unconscious reference, but also the crystal is adding energy into that, and you could charge the crystal, so it super boosts it. And that's just one little tweak of like, hey, what if we added a crystal to it? So maybe that's your magic mojo. But there's many different ways in where we can start talking to this, 5D arena, and really start tweaking like these goals and really kind of building that like relationship, that communication, getting that guidance. So it's way more than just like, here's my goal, let's hope it happens, right? Now we're starting to like, okay, here's my goal, what's my feedback? Because who better to tell you what's your path to get your goal than Source? How often is it's like kind of like going to somebody and saying like you want to get direction someplace, but you don't listen to what they say. You just announce like, I want to go to California. But if you don't get the feedback of like, well, you need to make a right, you need to make a turn. If you went to somebody and said, could you help me get to California? And then you don't listen to what they said. So that's what we're going to be doing. This is just the beginning. So if you didn't do the goals, this is why. This was why we're doing the goals. Because it's not just about getting the goals. It's get the goals in, see if we're actually getting some communication. Because you might already be really close with the veil, and like you're already getting communicated to, and you didn't know, or you're new, and that's cool. We're gonna try. We're gonna play with that, right? So you get a little communication. You got the nuance of like, okay, well, is it plus in my goal or is it poo-poo in my goal? If it's poo-poo, we know that's just limitation. Cool, but that's also revealed where that limitation is located, which we can get into that later too. I'm telling you, there's a lot of gold here. So now you got that communication. Okay, is this coming from Source or not? So you're starting to build that communication. Plus, on the part twos, we'll be going to some of these like things to boost, amp it up. Also, how to kind of map out, okay, is it coming from Source or is it coming from a limitation? Because if the limitation is embedded in your energetic field, that's also going to prevent you from moving forward. So, with that, if you like the video, give me a like, subscribe so you can get part two. Also, put some comments in there and say, yeah, I'm excited for part two. I want to go for this. I completed. I did it. I put my goals down. I'm starting to build the communication. So until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.